Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning. Well, it's almost noon already in the Baltics, and we are starting this webinar on rebuilding Ukraine and investment opportunities and financing insights. And we have, I'm really proud that TGS Baltic, we're doing this together with INTEGRITES, one of the leading or the leading law firm in the Ukrainian market, who knows very well the Ukrainian market. And we have three really excellent speakers today. And as I told them in the beginning, three really brave people, because probably in the Baltics today we are complaining if there is snow on the road or not. And in Kiev, I heard there was an air raid in the morning. So. But still, they are here, and they are here for you. And you know, I think in the Baltics we have Ukraine very close to our heart, and we have a lot of you know, we consider ourselves to be really great friends with Ukraine, and we cannot wait for the war to end, or for the war to end with a victory, and then. Of course, to be a part of rebuilding of Ukraine. And what we will hear today is that actually rebuilding of Ukraine is not a matter of the future. Rebuilding of Ukraine and already business opportunities related to that are a matter of today. So we will have 1.5 hours of really, really interesting discussion and really interesting takeaways. Colleagues from INTEGRITES will present a presentation. The slides will be made available to you. You don't need to make screenshots or anything. And we are also awaiting your questions. Please use the chat function for those questions. And I will tell you a secret: if we don't have enough questions in the chat, I will ask, then maybe somebody wants to ask a live question. And failing that, I have prepared some questions. But I hope that we will have many questions from your side. If we cannot answer all of your questions, again, we will reach out to you after the webinar, and we'll do that. Okay, so without further ado, I would like to invite the first speaker, Anna Pogrebna. Anna is a lawyer in real estate and construction and infrastructure for many, many years, as you can see, very acclaimed in various legal directories, and one of top experts on real estate and investments in Ukraine. So Anna, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Vilius, and welcome everyone. And I can say for myself and for my colleagues that we are excited to have this opportunity to present, to make this presentation today. So let me start. You surely know and have heard about the amount of damage that has been caused to Ukrainian infrastructure and to the Ukrainian economy in the course of the war. We present here the latest figures available that were made in and released in February 2024. So the estimated cost of reconstruction and recovery needs for Ukraine back then was around 486 billion US dollar. For sure, when the new figures are released, this it will be a higher amount. Next slide, please. And here you can see a breakdown of recovery and rebuilding needs by sectors. So housing was one of the sectors that suffered the most. Transport infrastructure, roads, railroads, ports, etc. Commerce and industry, logistics as well. Agricultural sector suffered a lot. Energy and natural resources industry, social protection facilities, educational facilities, health facilities, water supply, You surely heard of several cities in Ukraine, like Mykolaiv, experiencing extreme difficulties with water supply, for example, municipal services, water resource management, culture and tourism, telecommunications, banking and finance. So this is an overview of the sectors where investments are needed and where you can also direct your efforts if you decide to participate in recovery and rebuilding of Ukraine. Despite the war and what these almost 3 years of war have already taught us, that war is actually not a hindrance or an embargo for investments and for various business opportunities. And our businesses in all Ukrainian cities are proving that every day. And this resilience of business also combined with the support of our partners and the steps of our government led to the recovery growth of Ukraine's economy. Initially in 2022, the GDP dropped by 28%. By the end of 2023, we achieved a 5% GDP growth. In 2024, growth was estimated to range from 3.4 to 3.6%. So we remain optimistic, and we are looking forward to private investment that would also help for this trend of growth and recovery to continue. And of course, Ukraine has lots of advantages due to it. Ukrainian economy has lots of advantages due to its strategic position. It is a vital hub that links Europe and Asia. Ukraine has skilled and educated labor force. The cost levels are lower compared to EU countries. It has substantial natural resources, and this is something you have also surely seen in the recent news with the American initiatives of providing further support to Ukraine in exchange for its natural resources. So we will see how those negotiations move forward. Ukraine is a global player in agriculture for sure. It has also global significance in other industries such as mining and metals. And the government continues ongoing reform to improve the business climate and also to provide incentives for investment. And my colleague Ilya will speak about that later on. Next slide, please. So the key sectors and the key industries that have high growth potential in Ukraine are for sure energy, with the generation, distribution, and supply of electricity, heat generation, distribution and supply of heat, production and implementation of energy-saving technologies, distribution and supply of natural gas, exploration of oil and gas, infrastructure, construction and recovery and operation of roads, railways, runways, bridges, tunnels, seaports, waste management facilities, water supply systems, social housing. Since the beginning of the full-scale invasion, Ukraine had to face an issue of accommodation of internally displaced persons who moved away from the regions where hostilities have been active or are active, or from the regions that have been temporarily occupied by Russia. So the solution for that was installation of modular homes and construction of temporary housing. And of course, construction and overhaul of residential building remains active. Building of educational facilities, culture and sports facilities, healthcare facilities. Next slide. Yeah, I started with healthcare, healthcare. Then I move on to privatization. Last year we had several very successful cases of big privatization where state-owned enterprises in various sectors have been sold to private investors. This trend will continue also in 2025. It is also an attractive area to look at for potential investments. And then the natural resources industry and defense industry. Defense industry has been growing very fast naturally since the beginning of the full-scale invasion, with the creation of several joint ventures with European defense companies to further develop the national defense industry. And also, as you have heard, probably Ukraine has been very active in developing own high-tech defense tools, so to speak, and drones that are successfully attacking targets in Russia. Next slide. So what are the key platforms where, as a potential investor, you can look for opportunities and where you can find them? The main one is Ukraine Invest. It is a government investment promotion office that has been created in 2016. And its main goal is to attract foreign direct investment and assist existing investors to expand their businesses in Ukraine. Also, there is an agency, the State Agency for Reconstruction and Infrastructure Development. You can also check on their publications and announcements or address them with direct requests. There is a platform called Dream. It has been designed to serve as a unified single platform that will collect information and publish information on all reconstruction projects. It is still in development, but it is also worth checking announcements on this platform from time to time. Next slide. Then there is Prozoro. This is a key public procurement platform that ensures open access to all public tenders in Ukraine. And it is also possible to check the announcements in English. Of course, all the announcements are made in Ukrainian, but English translations are also available there. Then, of course, there are international donors. We did not list all of them here, but only a few. To give you an idea of where to look for tender announcements. For example, UNDP manages procurement to support sustainable development, humanitarian aid, and recovery projects in Ukraine. Of course, the European Commission procurement websites, NEFCO, for example, NEFCO provides financing for many environmental and climate projects, and also they provide financing for modular housing, for example, for the internally displaced persons in Ukraine. Next slide. So how do you participate in a public tender if you have found an announcement on Prozoro, for example, and this is a tender that is potentially interesting for your company? What should you do first? Well, first of all, you should know that all public procurements in Ukraine are based on the Ukrainian public procurement legislation. It has many similarities with the EU public procurement legislation, and we can proudly state that Ukraine has achieved sufficient progress in approximation of our public procurement guidelines to the EU standards. You should, with certain donors, you should really engage proactively. They appreciate if you address them with your potential ideas or projects, and if you introduce your projects, products and services to their procurement officials. As soon as you have submitted a bid, or even before submission of the bids, you should really engage actively in clarification and requests and communication with the bidding entities. It is essential because it allows you to resolve any uncertainties regarding tender requirements, and it allows you to refine your proposal and align with the expectations of the contracting authorities so that your bid is successful. Next slide. And another important part is partnering with other bidders, with other entities, and this is especially important for complex projects where different expertises are required and where one bidder cannot or is not able to provide the expertise required for the project development. So if you partner with the local Ukrainian company, you should know that if you form a consortium with the local Ukrainian company, you should know that it is mandatory that this consortium is registered under Ukrainian law. Forming an alliance of companies may also require approval from the Anti-Monopoly Committee of Ukraine when certain thresholds are met. So it is really important to check the legislative requirements before you form a consortium, before the consortium agreement is entered into. And for example, in construction tenders, certain permits will be required from the consortium participants, and usually a non-resident bidder cannot provide those permits unless this non-resident bidder has a legal presence in Ukraine. So our tips are, if you form a consortium, check the legal requirements beforehand, clearly define the roles among the participants, ensure compliance with tender procurement and construction law requirements, verify all licensing and permit requirements, and submit a successful bid.
Anna, thank you very much. So this was really a good initial overview, and I'm asking to see if we have any questions in the chat, or the audience may be still warming up. So maybe I can start with my question. You mentioned several things, as already being implemented. And of course, you also told where to look for those opportunities, but also I think for business community who is now online here is important to who is doing, I don't know, maybe you can tell some story of a project, I don't know, in modular homes or some privatization where entities who is participating there right now. What kind of business?
What we can see at the moment in privatizations is increased participation of Ukrainian businesses. Naturally, because we still note that many foreign businesses are hesitating in entering Ukrainian market during the war times. But as we see that Ukrainian businesses are grabbing those opportunities that are at hand, so our advice to the foreign businesses is don't wait until it's too late. Because if you wait for too long, when the let's say when the war is over, or when the hostilities are over, and when there is some sort of a peace agreement, then maybe it will be too late already for you to enter the market. But one of the success stories I can share is of our American client who did not hesitate and invested in the rebuilding of a shopping mall in Irpin near Kiev, and Irpin was one of the sites near Kiev that was really heavily hit when the full-scale invasion began in 2022. And I think it was last year that the shopping mall was rebuilt, and the inhabitants of Irpin are currently visiting it. The shops are open, and the businesses are operating there.
Yeah, thank you, Anna. And so did they finance it themselves? I don't know. Of course, we have a section on financing opportunities that's coming in the webinar, but generally the American investors, did they bring the money from the US, or was it financed by some of the international financial institutions?
They had external finances. They attracted external finances. Yeah.
I see. Okay, and by the way, maybe a note to the audience, we will now move to the second part, but please, when we have the next Q&A section, in addition to asking questions in the chat, you can also raise your hand and ask them live. So please do. The operator will tell me if some hands are up. Unless any hands are up right now, I will then pass the floor to Ilya. Ilya Tkachuk is senior partner at INTEGRITES, and also a very well-acclaimed lawyer in Ukraine, one of the leaders in the market, and he is heading corporate and M&A.
With a short answer to your question, because this is generally, let's say, one of the messages which we would like to bring to the potential companies and investors from Baltic countries, that the war in Ukraine is, well, if you take the map, it's only 20% of the territory. And of course, the war creates a lot of challenges, whereby challenges creates opportunities for those who are ready to take them. So by saying that, we're trying to bring the message that a lot of projects, investment projects, they are currently ongoing in Ukraine. It's not something that's going to start when the war is over. No, it's something that is already ongoing. And we believe that there might be a lack of information about those opportunities. And a part of our role is to bring the message that those opportunities are already today available to those companies who are ready to look at them. Look, taking the exact examples, which you can, it's a publicly available information, so it's easy to check. In 2023, NAFCO reserved a fund of more than 30 million euro for the reconstruction of residential houses all around Ukraine in different cities. Yes, this project was implemented, and for each part of the project, they were launching the tenders, looking for the contractors who are ready to take those projects. That's something which is financed by international institutions. And here we had last year with Anna and Igor a very nice discussion with USAID, who gave us the rough estimation that around, well, a little bit more than $1 billion was reserved for the project in infrastructure, and the same amount roughly is reserved for the social projects. So this money already available, but there is a lack of the project, there is a lack of contractors. Yes, because in order to reach such projects, you need to have high standards of compliance and requirements, which is not always available for the pure local contractors. And this is a good sign for international players who used to comply with such rules and who are ready to go and explore such opportunities. On the commercial side, there is also a time of new opportunities because of the occupation and the limited access to the sea. A lot of companies in Ukraine face difficulties with the infrastructure problems, with the possibility to transfer and sell the goods outside of Ukraine. This is a question for agricultural companies. This is a big question for metal production companies. And naturally, those companies started to explore opportunities investing into infrastructure. And that's where, again, we face the opportunities for international players who can come and, again, provide their qualification and expertise in exploring such projects. Ukraine, before the war, invested a lot of time and efforts in the development of European standard legislature related to concessions and privatizations. And actually, those legislature was highly tested during the wartime for the projects of tenders, of transferring the infrastructure, port infrastructure to private investors for the concession project. So actually, this is something that ongoing today. It's not something that's gonna start, as you see from the examples. Another, let's say, challenge which existed in Ukraine for many companies, the limitation to transfer the currency abroad Ukraine. But this challenge created the opportunities for those companies who decided to reinvest all those funds into the new project in Ukraine. And again, agricultural companies invested real lot in the processing production facilities, into the alternative energy facilities. And these all areas where they invited international players to join them because there is no proper expertise in Ukraine. So everybody is looking for those investors who are ready to come. And that's why we are talking about the opportunities which are available today, not tomorrow. As I already mentioned, the state prepared for a quite long period of time proper legislature for investors. One of such important piece of legislature was state support of big investment projects, which ultimately came resulted in two major support programs. One is a state support of big investment projects, and we will come to the requirements of these projects on the next slides, and industrial parks, which provide for some, again, mostly tax benefits for those who decide to implement the industrial parks or implement their projects in the industrial parks within the existing industrial parks. And by the way, there are already a lot of industrial parks which were opened. Many of them were opened during the wartime. Many of them specialize in some industries like IT, IP, like defense. So it's already a developed model which exists in Ukraine and which proven to be efficient. Can we go to the next slide, maybe, to see the ultimate, well, let's say the monetized side of the state support which is today available. So the state reserved in the state budget quite a lot, well, substantial amount as for the war budget of funds related to the state support of investment projects and industrial parks on both, as you see on the slide. With the state support on investment projects, this mechanism was developed before the war, but because of all these interruptions with the war and the necessity to improve this process, unfortunately, we face a situation where only last year the first project were implemented. But the good thing is that these first two projects which were approved last year already proves that this program works. And ultimately, what is the best part of this program is that it allows the foreign investor to get a refund, let's say, refund from the state in the amount which should not exceed 30% of the value of the project. So we are talking about, let's say, roughly, if we take the minimum amount of the project which can apply to the investment project is actually 12 million. So if you take 12 million or 30% from the 12 million, you'll see that it's a great support. And the good thing of the project, of the program as such, that this support is granted not by way of transferring of the funds, otherwise you would fully belong on the availability of funds from the state budget, but on mostly in a way of tax exemptions for the future period, so that you understand that you will be able to benefit from not paying certain taxes during defined period of time, and that allows the investors to build up the proper business plan for benefiting from this program. The industrial parks existed for quite a long period of time, and again, the model is a little bit different from the investment support projects. The industrial parks, you can either create your own or you can try to implement the project within the existing one, and within the existing one you will be able to benefit from obtained already for such park benefits, which are mostly exemption from corporate income tax in case you reinvest. So that there are also benefits which are available for such type of project, and there are funds allocated to support such projects. So this means that we believe that the program will work for in 2025, and we hope to see a positive result out of that. By the way, it's a very interesting situation today. We are supporting today more than 5 projects on the construction of the plants in Ukraine. I must say that we never had that many construction projects before the war. So most of them are already focused on a time which will be after the war is over. I mean, a lot of projects on the construction of the production facilities in, let's say, in a construction area for the construction materials, everything that it relates to construction, because evidently there will be high demand. There is already high demand on that. So there will be much more demand on the construction materials, and in order to build the plant, you need to invest time and efforts. So it's like 1 year time minimum, but that you need to spend before you will be able to launch the production. And it's the time to be spent now if you want to reach the market when it's open. So yeah, we can go further a little bit more on the slides. Let's maybe, yeah, in the next slide, we can probably, yeah, important thing that about the investment support. You don't need to create the company in Ukraine to apply for the support. So basically, if you keep in mind your project, yes, and you are thinking about the budgeting, you're thinking about whether you will be able to, you know, apply for the state support, you can do it without the creation of the company in Ukraine. You can apply directly from your foreign company. You can approach the Ukraine Invest Institution, which is a kind of advisory authority which helps you to fit your projects into the requirements and to push it further into the entire chain of all the ministries with which this project should be approved. And then once you have an approval of that, you can return back to the idea of creation of the company when you already know that it works. So it does not require you much of the efforts on this stage to check whether your project can benefit from this support or not. And on the next slide, you'll see actually what are the tax benefits. Next slide, please. Which you potentially may have. Again, that's remedies how you can achieve those up to 30% of the compensation from the state. So you can either request for the exemption from the corporate income tax, which can be done within 5 years, any period of time for the implementation of the project. You can ask for the VAT, it's import VAT and the custom duties when you import the equipment. Of course, you can ask the support in the infrastructure. the legislature allows you to apply and get this type of support by the state constructing, or the local authorities constructing you the required infrastructure. That could be utilities, that could be railway lines, that could be roads, anything you need for the implementation of the project. Of course, you can apply the same to the using the exemption from the land tax, rent payments, and other available opportunities. Yes. And what is important in terms of the implementation of the project, that the state try to develop the model which is protective to the investors and reliable. So the law clearly provides for the possibility to subordinate the investment agreements to the foreign law, to English law, and to English arbitration, so that you will not have difficulties with protecting your rights in Ukraine from Ukrainian state, but you have an international institutions which will protect you in case something goes wrong. So again, it's one of the intentional steps which was taken by the state in order to ensure the comfort of foreign investors who decided to come to Ukraine and implement such important projects. On the next slide, you'll see the areas which are available for the state support program. Not all of the projects can be eligible to benefit from this program, only selected one. Mostly these are those which refers to any type of the production or processing, but there are other exceptions. We are currently actually discussing within the working group in the Ministry of Economy the possibility to extend this list and include here alternative energy projects, other projects like logistics project, because not all logistics projects can benefit from it, but only part of them. So there is a discussion and intention of the state to continue enlarging if they see that there is an interest from the investors to come. And of course, on the next slide, you'll see also the final criteria which you need to meet in order to benefit from this program. And here where we come to the minimum value of the project of 12 million. We are talking about the maximum period for implementation of the projects, 5 years. So basically, if you have a production facility which is split in 2 sections, and both sections are meeting both criteria, 12 million and 5 years, you can apply this as a one project for the state support and already benefit from it. Of course, you need to create new jobs for Ukraine, and this is a minimum criteria which vary from 10 to 50 depending on the salary which you are ready to propose. And another important opportunity which was implemented quite recently, that's the possibility to submit for the state support those projects which started 18 months as before the application. So basically, even if you start already the project, it does not prevent you from the possibility to benefit from this program. A few words maybe about the industrial parks, and the next slides I have dedicated to the parks, you will see the requirements, yes, but let's keep maybe slide next, next slide. You'll see that the industrial parks, there are a number of available new parks that already propose you land with already a possibility to benefit from certain tax exemptions. They may vary from park to park because it's a special agreement which is concluded with each park, but which is already a good opportunity where you receive, or you can buy the land within the industrial parks with certain benefits, with all the connections. And of course, if you decide to create your own park, that you will get much more benefits from the state for the creation and administration of the parks. So this is very short information which I wanted within those time limits which we have to present you, but definitely we have much more information about those. So if you have questions, I will be so delighted to answer them.
Ilya, thank you very much. It seems like we don't have questions in the chat, and the operator will tell me if we have questions by raised hands, but I will. Okay, so I'm at least lucky to be able to ask my questions. And maybe if we go to your slide where you had these the list of kind of industries or spheres of investment where assistance was. Yeah, this one. One thing I'm missing. Real estate development and especially residential real estate development. Is there some special program for that, or maybe you can talk a little bit about this, because we saw from Anna's presentation that the biggest part of the damage, if I remember correctly, 80 billion of damage is in the residential real estate.
Yeah, Vilius, many thanks for this question. So it's a very good one. No, there was a big discussion about including this into the list, but ultimately there was a decision not to include the residential constructions into this list. And the logic behind that the construction of the residential houses are done at the financial support of international institutions, like supporting projects where there is no need to give additional support, it's already supportive, or it's a pure commercial thing which does not create working space, new jobs, and contribute to the development of economy, in which case, again, there is no room for the state support. So basically, it is more oriented on boosting the economy by creating of new productions and creating of new values, and more generally, going from the let's say raw materials economy to a processing economy, and that's the logic which was developed before the war. And for the time being, there's no even discussion to putting the residential construction into the list.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. Yeah, that's clear. Okay, and so now if we look into these areas, and you also mentioned that as one example that there is a lack of contractors, for example, right, and who are able to qualify under certain higher standards that are applicable. And of course, here in the Baltics, in Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania, we have quite strong, I mean, of course, they are regional players, but still quite strong contracting companies. And so maybe I have kind of my question is twofold. One, so if a contractor from the Baltics is interested, whom do they talk to? I mean, because of course, when you talk about contracting works, the first question that springs to mind, okay, so what about insurance? What about how do I protect my staff? How do I protect my property? I mean, is the war is covered? Because the country which we are stopped naming around here is sending rockets and so on. So how to start? Okay, I'm interested. How to start with these basic protective measures questions?
Yeah, it is again good question. I'm sure my colleague Igor will cover the part related to the insurance, but to answer your question, a lot of opportunities which lie today, they lie also not for those who implement their own projects, but also acting pure like contractors for construction or other projects. Like already from the list which we mentioned, there is a project for the, I don't know, waste management or biomethane production. It's a technology which is not available in Ukraine. This is a technology which Ukrainian companies, while implementing those projects, gonna buy from abroad. Apart from pure technology, there is also a need to install it to perform the works on launching those projects. This is everything which is not available in Ukraine. So in any case, Ukrainian companies which will invest, which are investing currently in such type of project, they are buying these services from European, American, other companies. So those projects are implemented today, and that's what we're saying. If you have the technology, yes, or if you have if your clients have certain knowledge, certain expertise, which you believe might be of interest, and again, here we are available to provide more information in different areas, what is going on in agriculture, in IT, in construction, in mineral resources, to give more kind of information about the potential projects which the companies or foreign investors may look for in Ukraine. Here, it's very easy. I mean, we can here start with a presentation of the general information about those areas, finishing when making the meetings with the companies which are working in those areas in Ukraine, with the sole purpose to find a joint interest in the implementation of those projects. I mean, this is all about rebuilding Ukraine. This is ultimate benefit of the entire country. So we are ready to invest in time and efforts in that.
Absolutely, yeah. Yes, thank you, Ilya. Very useful. And by the way, you kind of started answering my second question. So which are those companies? You mentioned there's American, European companies. So if we talk about construction works, maybe you can mention some names, because it's kind of gives also a picture of the market for people. So which companies from these European or American companies are active currently?
Look, we probably can use the in order to stay compliant with the attorney's secrecy. We can use only the publicly available information, but that's very easy. When you come to the site of Ukraine Invest and you see those projects which are which applied for the state support or which are in the process of getting the state support, you'll see the projects which are implemented, for example, by such company as Bayer, as Nestlé, as Kingspan. These are those who are constructing currently, among the international players who are constructing the production facilities. There is a CRH, which is making the project in the construction of the concrete plant in Ukraine. Again, in the public sources, you may find information about the French Saint-Gobain, which constructed last year the plant for the construction of construction materials. There are information about Kranaspan already, so that enlarging the production facilities. But these are publicly available information, can be checked online. But these are concrete companies which started their project. It's the project which started during the war, so it's not like something started before and was finished. These companies estimated the risks. Some of them got insurance, and that's where we will talk about the coverage and the security which is available today. Some of them doing the projects themselves. There are also a number of Ukrainian companies doing the projects. Yes. One of the projects was mentioned on the site. It's one of the top Ukrainian agricultural companies, Astarta, which got state support for the production of I think it was soybean milled plant. So it's processing all the food materials. Yes. Another project which got the state support was a recreation project in the western part of Ukraine for the construction of I think it's a spa recreation center which got a support from the state. It's a second project, but it's implemented by Ukrainian companies, so this might not be that let's say visible for international companies, because we know them quite well. We know them on the market, but maybe they are not that familiar internationally. So these are very concrete projects, and again, it's very easy to find more information about the about those in the on the internet. And one more important thing, which I already started telling but did not develop well, the mineral resources. Yes, we are talking about the construction area and construction demand which is existing today on the market. What is extremely important to say that Ukraine is rich of mineral resources. Before the war, the State Geological Service did tremendous work on the preparation of the audited available deposit of mineral resources, which they proposed to investors to come, take, and develop. This information, again, available on the website on the State Geological Service. These resources can be taken by any investor. Okay, there will be auction, but there will be some situation where there are not that many investors who are coming and willing to take. So there will be a possibility to discuss the possibility of taking and developing the deposit, including for putting the processing production facilities for the production of construction materials. This week we had a new project which is going to be implemented by Ukrainian company, which was announced, is the construction of the glass production plant. It's a project of announced 240 million euro. I mean, you can imagine what is the demand of the windows in Ukraine because of all this missiles attack. It's enormous. If you take the statistics, already today the demand is much more than I mean, there is no production at all. Before the war, we imported the windows from Belarus, which is again not available today. So the market is so demanding today for this type of project. So that there are several projects in the construction of the glass production facilities, which are publicly discussed today by different investors.
Thank you, Ilya. And so what we have, by the way, and as the speakers can see, we had the first question from the audience. Natalia, thank you very much. I think we should have some special prize for Natalia for being the icebreaker and asking the questions. So she asked actually about construction materials. And Ilya, you talked a little bit already and about, so mainly, is it, I don't know, would you like to add something? Or generally, that's the kind of answer that there is movement now in establishing construction materials production inside Ukraine so that it could service the rebuilding work there.
I would say that Natalia knows something by raising this question, that's for sure, because actually the materials, the mineral resources and construction materials is probably one of the major focus of a lot of investors today in Ukraine. Because actually, look, privatization, one of the biggest privatization targets was the state mineral resources company. It's the biggest company for mineral resources in Ukraine, which was owned by the state, and it was bought by NECUSOL. It's an investment fund from I think it's from Uzbekistan, if I'm not mistaken. Sorry, Azerbaijan, my mistake, sorry. Again, I already mentioned about the plant which was constructed for the construction materials of Saint-Gobain. So it's an area where a lot of things are going on. And I'm pretty sure that there will be a lot of projects further.
Vilius and Ilya, if I may add to that as well and give an example of a recent project that we started working on last year. Our client, Finnish Peiko Group, they are manufacturer of slim floor structures and connection technologies for construction. They have established their presence in Ukraine, and they have cooperated with an industrial park located in the Kiev region to construct production facilities for them in Ukraine. So this is something that is really developing very, very actively, and this is something that is going on. And Peiko, they have seen the opportunity to invest in the production of construction materials locally and in creating new jobs, and they are using it. So this is an example to encourage other manufacturers to set up their production facilities in Ukraine. And also to add to the names that Ilya mentioned, the big players active in production of construction materials in Ukraine. We have an example of the German Knauf Gips, and they used to have a factory in eastern Ukraine in the area that is currently occupied, and they have relocated their production facilities to the western part of Ukraine, and they continue working.
Thank you, Anna, for coming, and thank you, Natalia, again for the question. for coming in. So, okay, Ilya, thank you very much. So I think now, and as you have already advertised, we are moving to Igor. Igor Krasnitsky is head of banking and finance, also one of the leading lawyers in the Ukrainian market. And Igor will talk to us more about things like insurance, which are, of course, now highly topical for many people who are considering investment. Igor, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much, Julius, and thanks to everyone who has joined us today. So our team has been heavily involved in all aspects of war risk insurance since the outbreak of war. That is why we're going to talk about this topic in the last part of our webinar or presentation. So maybe we will start from discussing what the political risk insurance is and what kind of insurance is currently available in the market. And then we will show you some success stories and case studies which were successfully implemented in practice, for example, last year, because last year was a really breakthrough in terms of the political risk insurance, and lots of products were launched by international finance institutions. So basically, as I already mentioned, political risk insurance is indeed a very fascinating and extremely important topic for those who have an appetite for the Ukrainian risk at the moment. So definitely political risk insurance will help you to mitigate or at least reduce the country risk. But what is important to understand is that this type of protection is typically excluded from the standard insurance policies and should be bought separately. War risk insurance as such provides protection against loss of your investment, destruction or damage to your property, or even complete total business interruption caused by a war, a civil disturbance, or other politically motivated acts such as terrorism, revolution, sabotage, etc. So the coverage is typically provided by either private or public providers. So private providers are private insurance companies and reinsurance companies in the international market. And public providers are typically multinational, multilateral agencies or national export credit agencies, which may cover both export credit and trade transactions, as well as longer-term investments. So multilateral agencies such as MIGA, DFC, and the BRD, they are currently very active in Ukraine. They provide the political risk insurance or reinsurance, and they have special programs for big projects, but they also have programs for small and medium investors who can benefit from this coverage through the Ukrainian insurance companies, which are reinsured by the multilateral agencies. Coverage, pricing, tenor, and eligibility vary widely by the underwriter and type of investment. So basically, typically this protection includes also the so-called unconvertibility and unconvertibility risk, which means that you won't be able to convert national currency into the foreign currency and divest it from Ukraine. But in most cases, currently, this type of risk is specifically excluded from the war risk insurance provided by, DFIs and IFIs in the market. But still, you can get some protection against nationalization, against even default by the government or state enterprises under state contracts. Let's move to the next slide, please. And next one, we will go back to this a bit later. Yes, thank you. So the underwriting process basically very quickly begins from, it's very straightforward, and it begins from the submission of application. In most cases, the application, if we're talking about, for example, public underwriters, the application is free of charge, it's quite short, it's confidential, and it can be done online in most cases. After the submission of that application, the underwriter assesses the risk, checks if the project meets the eligibility conditions or criteria. And at this point, usually the underwriter discusses with the applicant the potential size of the guarantee and the coverage, and discusses the pricing. If the project is bankable, the next step is a thorough due diligence into the project by the underwriter. And at this stage, the company or investor or the sponsor is required to submit supporting documentation. Let's go back to the previous slide, which includes typically, feasibility study of your project, financial model. If you are going to cover financing, so you will have to provide underlying loan documentation, including shareholder loans or the loans from third parties. If you apply for the coverage for a specific project finance deal, you would be definitely required to, to provide different environmental permits, confirmation that you have secured all necessary approvals and land lease agreements if needed. Typically, you will also have to provide your financial statements and incorporation and constituent documents, as well as any other documents related to the project. Usually such applications are free of charge, but sometimes the application fee may apply, but it's quite minor. It's from $5,000 to $10,000 for one application, so it's not that big at all. The duration of the underlying process. Now we can go to the next slide again. Thank you. Yes, so the duration of the underlying process depends on the complexity of the project, but most of the projects can be underwritten in 4 to 6 months or less. Smaller projects can be processed in 1 or 2 months, basically. The only caveat here is that most of the underwriters, they cover the risks only for new investments or for new projects. Some of them, can potentially cover the existing investments in projects, but there are not so many such products in the market. So in most cases, we're talking about new investments or new projects. The types of foreign investments that can be typically covered against the political risk include equity property, as I already mentioned, equity shareholder loans, shareholder loan guarantees, or non-shareholder loans. Next slide, please. By way of example, the Germany, the federal German government has implemented very successful investment guarantee scheme or investment guarantee projects for German companies doing business in Ukraine or investing in Ukraine. This is just by way of example. So it actually provides this program that German business or business structured through the German may benefit from the guarantees, investment guarantees issued by the German government. And then guarantees, they typically cover the full amount of the investment, which is made in Ukraine, in the Ukrainian company. So it covers shareholder loans, it covers equity contribution, and it also covers the property, the risk of loss or damage to your property in Ukraine. Next slide, please. Yeah, so this slide, you can see some of the benefits of this type of the guarantee scheme. So probably the key benefit is that your risk is fully covered, basically. So in most cases, even if your properties or assets are just partially damaged, you can apply for compensation, or you can get compensated for the part of your assets which have been damaged or destructed. And maybe what should be said here is that definitely the size of such investment guarantees is limited. So it's around 20 million per one company in Ukraine. but typically most of the investment guarantees, they are between 5 and 15 million euros. Yes, next slide, please. Yes, as I already mentioned, the last year was really marked by, a really great development in war risk insurance products in Ukraine. And here you can see a number of the success stories and success deals where the multilateral financial institutions like DFC, MIGA, and EBRD has provided this reinsurance or insurance for Ukrainian and foreign businesses in Ukraine. Foreign businesses investing in Ukraine. Next slide, please. This slide is just about probably more about financing, but it's very important probably to highlight that currently foreign companies they can benefit from the coverage from MIGA, from IFC, from DFC, and just recently EBRD has also announced about its new program. So MIGA, maybe a little bit about MIGA. MIGA is more focused on small or mid-sized projects between 5 to 25 million euro. MIGA, I think they mostly provide the investment guarantees, not the insurance of property, so they can guarantee the return of your investment, so they can cover your equity contribution, or they can cover your shareholder loan or financing from any banking institution, rather than insure in classical sense your property in Ukraine. MIGA actually already provided, I think, more than 200 million in investment guarantees to different foreign companies doing business in Ukraine. The specifics about MIGA is that they mostly focus on the foreign investors and not the local investors. So this probably institution is very relevant for these companies who are incorporated in European Union, for example, or United States. IFC is less active currently in the market. They mostly prefer to provide debt financing rather than any kinds of coverage. But I do know that they are ready to team up with MIGA or with DFC or with EBRD if there is a big financing, or if there is a new project which is very impactful and has a very great social effect for Ukraine. They can team up and probably take a part of the risk, share that risk with other financial institutions. DFC, I think DFC is the most active currently in the market, and they implemented a pilot project last year with the local insurance company IRIX. IRIX is the Ukrainian subsidiary of Fairfax insurance company. So the idea of that project is DFC provides a reinsurance for IRIX, for the local insurance company. And the local insurance company basically sells the coverage against the war risk to everyone, to foreign companies doing business in Ukraine and to the local companies. We will probably a little bit later, talk about this project in more detail. Next slide, please. UK expert finance. So as I already also mentioned, there are expert credit agencies, national expert credit agencies, which provide the coverage when some goods or equipment are purchased from the, for example, UK suppliers or other national suppliers. So UK expert finance actually covered a number of the projects over the last 2 years in Ukraine. Mostly those projects were in defense sector and were related to the financing for either sovereign or sub-sovereign entities. So as far as I understand, UKF is open for business to everyone. The only requirement is there should be some kind of link to the UK supplier. If the project implies at least 25% of supply from UK, then the sponsor of the project or the companies implementing the project may apply to UKF for the coverage against the political risk. Next slide, please. You can now see a number of other export credit agencies which are very active in the market. So these are mostly focused on the businesses from their jurisdictions. BPA France is supporting the French companies. So quite the same scheme as in case of German companies. So BPA France can cover the risk related to the trade transactions. They can cover risks related to loans and equity contributions to the Ukrainian entities. KUKEM is a Polish export credit agency because of a very close connection between Ukraine and Poland. Definitely, there are lots of connections between different companies. KUKE is very active. They can cover investment. They can provide investment coverage against the war risk, and they can also have a wide range of trade finance products for those for Ukrainian companies and for other companies, provided that some kind of Polish element or component is included in the deal. Same applies to SACE, which is the Italian export credit agency, and EXFIN. So next slide, please. Now we probably can go a little bit into the details of the project of DFC. So as I mentioned, this project implies the reinsurance of policies sold internally in the market by local insurance companies. And what are the key conditions? So basically, you can benefit from this program by applying to IRX, at the moment insurance company, and you can insure your property for the amount of up to 2.5 million per one location. So there are, of course, some limitations. First, it's the maximum cap, which is, as I just mentioned, 2.5 million. And another limitation is the location of your project or location of your assets. If your assets are located closer than 100 kilometers to the front line, then it's not eligible for coverage. And there is also a limitation applicable to assets or projects which are located very close to military facilities, military bases, critical infrastructure, and stuff like that. But this is quite general practice, which is applied by most of the insurers and reinsurers working in the Ukrainian market. Basically, we advise DFC on this project, and we know that DFC is going to provide the same reinsurance coverage during the first quarter of this year for the two more local insurance companies. It means that the total exposure of the DFC will be approximately 350 million. So next slide, please. EBRD. So EBRD, I think, is the biggest investor in Ukraine. They have a portfolio of 6 billion of Ukrainian loans and guarantees. So the exposure of EBRD is really huge. And the EBRD, in cooperation with Aon and in cooperation with some other, insurance brokers in Ukraine, they announced quite the same program as DFC, but in case of EBRD, this program is more focused on the transportation of goods. So they have this general commitment of 110 million, and they can provide the coverage for logistics, yes, and for insuring the goods which are in transit through the territory of Ukraine or which are just delivered outside of Ukraine. So basically, it's more focused on export and import transactions. Next slide, please. Yes, so this is a good Marsh McLennan. This is a good example that even some private reinsurance, international reinsurance companies They are now ready to take the Ukrainian risk. They are now ready to provide the reinsurance in the syndicated loans market for some of the Ukrainian projects. And as you can see, this is a good example when international companies are ready to underwrite the risk of up to 50 million. I just want to highlight, so 50 million is not the aggregate or total amount of the coverage or reinsurance they are ready to provide. It's just the limit for one client. So it's a insurance cap on one project. It's already quite interesting because it may cover quite big projects in Ukraine and quite big startups. Next slide, please. Yeah, finally, I'd like to also to say a few words about ongoing reforms in Ukraine in the reinsurance and insurance market specifically. Currently, the National Bank of Ukraine, together with the Ministry of Economy, they submitted a new draft law on war risk insurance in Ukraine. And the main purpose of the law is completely reshape the regulatory framework. So the main idea is to create a so-called state agency for war risk insurance. This agency will reinsure the risks of the local insurance companies, and will basically draft the policies, the main terms and conditions of the war risk insurance, which can be bought internally in the Ukrainian local market by foreign and local companies. The idea is that international financial institutions will invest and will take a share in the state agency, and that contribution will be used as a fund to compensate for losses under the insurance policies. So I think this is the second step the government makes in order to to expand the availability of the coverage against the political risk. It also makes sense to mention about the Ukrainian Export Credit Agency. It's the institution which has been recently created, and the main idea of the institution is also to provide different types of investment guarantees to foreign companies and local companies who are investing in infrastructure and processing. And as far as I know, they already covered more than 50 million. They already underwritten more than 50 million of war risk policies last year. So basically, this brings us to the end of our presentation, and maybe I'd like just to say that the last year has shown that there are instruments in the market and products in the market which can be used by foreign investors in order to mitigate and reduce their risk in Ukraine. So it's maybe in some cases it can be difficult to obtain those instruments because you need to prove the underwriters that your project is bankable and that your project is eligible to benefit from that coverage. But it's possible, and there are a number of the projects and cases when the investors were able to obtain such coverage. So thank you very much. I'd be happy to answer any of your questions.
Igor, thank you very much. This was extremely informative, and thank you especially for the case studies. And this is really interesting. So no questions from the audience. So I'm lucky because I will ask my questions. One question, and of course I understand this can vary greatly, and it's a matter also of a specific project. But just for a feeling, do you have some? I mean, could you name some range of what kind of premium could be expected in percentage-wise from the value of the project?
So actually, the premium and the pricing. Okay, if the coverage is provided by DeFi or IFI, the so-called public multilateral agency, So the pricing or premium, the average premium is in the range of between 0.5 and 2% from the total amount of the project, or not project, but from the total amount of the coverage you get from that institution. So I think that's quite reasonable in terms of pricing. But when it comes to, for example, private underwriters like Marsh or like some other place in the banks in the Lloyd's syndicate market, reinsurance market in London. So the average premium can vary between 3 and 5% for project. So it's a little bit higher, not a little bit, maybe much higher, but just because this is a commercial institution, commercial company, and they take absolutely entire risk in Ukraine, which is very high. But what you can do in order to reduce the risk, you can you can sign up for a policy from public institution partially and partially from the private institution, which in average will reduce your cost on the coverage and on insurance.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you, Igor. And these specifics, I think, are really important and interesting. And one sign of it is that we have now questions from. So one question from Adam is, if we have a ceasefire or some kind of temporary stop of hostilities, would those insurances be affected? Would businesses need to think of new insurance, or this would also cover, potential, a restart of war if that happens, or so ceasefire effect on the insurances?
So as far as I know, the insurance policies will continue to remain in full force and effect, so there will be no changes in conditions. I mean, if there is a peace deal or a ceasefire, or there is no, or the martial law in Ukraine is cancelled or removed, you still be fully covered against the political risk or war risk. But what I've seen in practice is that in many contracts, many reinsurance and insurance contracts, you have special clause saying that in case of ceasefire or in case the war is over, you can raise the question of renegotiating your premium. So the premium can reduce.
Yeah.
So because there will be less risk, the premium you can renegotiate or revisit the premium with your underwriter in that case.
Yeah, of course. Fair enough. Thank you, Igor. And another question from Dominikas, and that relates to the new administration in the United States. So we talk about DFC, IFC, heavily impacted by the US, and do you see any change of policies in these institutions with the new US administration?
Actually, we met with DFC just last week, and we discussed about their plans in Ukraine and about the ongoing projects they have in pipeline. So they told us that they remain committed to finance and support Ukrainian projects. So all of the projects which are currently in the pipeline will be financed, provided they meet the conditions and criteria of DFC. They told us that there will be a slight change in the sectors. So probably they will prioritize the mineral resources over renewable energies, as far as I understand. And probably they will also consider the project related to oil and gas, because oil and gas was not high on the agenda last year, and at least on the DFC's agenda. So they also told us that DFC was basically created by the first Trump administration. Therefore, they are not worried about a complete U-turn or a change of the policy. They confirmed that the new CEO will be appointed very soon, and once he's appointed, they will be able to renew all of the ongoing projects in Ukraine. So what we expect? We expect probably that there will be a little bit change in terms of areas and sectors of the projects. And before, the key requirement of DFC was that the project should be highly developmental, so it has a high developmental impact. And now the key criteria or the key requirement is that the project may in some way benefit the United States. And if this is met, then the project can be financed or can benefit from the coverage.
Okay, yeah, thank you. This is very clear. Thank you. Okay, I'm looking. The audience has no further questions, so maybe. Yeah, before we kind of have the last round of, because we have just a couple of minutes, just very brief question, Igor, because this is what I heard also from some people interested. What about personal risk? The insurances you described are basically property risk, right? And so can you insure employees also, or that is not yet on the table?
Yeah, it's possible. I mean, I think that there are a number of the Ukrainian insurance companies, both Ukrainian and subsidiaries of the international insurance companies, which provide these products. So you can buy the insurance policy, personal insurance policies when you travel to Ukraine or for the period of your stay in Ukraine. Now it's available. And as far as I know, there was some problems with buying and getting such policies in 2022 or even 2023. But last year, I think most of the insurance companies, they're currently ready to provide this.
Yeah.
So basically, you can easily buy it.
Yeah, thank you, Igor. Well, Anna, Ilya, Igor, so I think, well, the time has run out really quickly, flying, and well, we have even one more question from Dominikas. Okay, maybe we can take that. Actually, it's an interesting question. So we will say goodbye really quickly after that. What are the largest projects in terms of quantum, in terms of project value that have been insured? So what is the kind of scale of project that is getting these insurances?
Okay, so as I already mentioned, there are programs for SME, for example, and there is a possibility to get coverage for a big project finance deal. So in my experience, we're currently advising one of our clients on the development and construction of the wind park in Ukraine, in the western part of Ukraine. The total value of the project is approximately 250 million. And it is expected that the DFC, together with IFC, will provide the coverage for that project. So this is, just this gives you the idea of the size of the projects which can potentially benefit from the coverage. So in my experience, it's up to 250 million. But of course, those projects are maybe not very frequent in the market, yes, because the bankers and the agencies they are more inclined to take less risk, and they are more willing to finance and cover projects between 10 and 15 million, as far as I know.
Okay. Thank you, Igor. Well, now we need to finish this, so thank you very much, Anna, Ilya, and Igor, for the very interesting presentation. You see the interest is growing, and I'm sure there are questions we didn't answer or people didn't yet ask, but please do reach out to us. We will put you in contact with Ilya, Anna, and Igor and their colleagues. They will be very happy to answer your questions or to go deeper and to generally to help you navigate the situation in Ukraine. And so, guys, thank you very much. This was very interesting. As I said when I started, you guys are super brave, and we are really with you until victory and afterwards. So let's push on, and thank you very much for this excellent morning.
Thank you very much, Vilius, and also big thank you to all people of the Baltic states for supporting Ukraine. It means a lot to us. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank
So
you.
we can say that you are also very brave, basically.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, so let's keep together and have a great day for everyone. And I'm sure this was a good start to it. And well, let's continue the conversation on Ukraine. Thank you.
Great.
Bye bye. Take care.
Have a nice
Thank
day.
you.
Bye.
Bye bye.